Imagine walking into what should be a welcoming community center, only to be hit with a sneer and a comment like, "We don't get many like you around here," making it clear from the jump that your skin color and accent already marked you as an outsider, unworthy of real respect. That's the shocking reality I faced on my first day in Willow Creek, Georgia. You know, I used to think small towns like that were these cozy havens where everyone knew your name and folks pulled together like family, but man, was I wrong when I first rolled into that place back in the summer of 24. Picture this dusty main street lined with faded brick buildings, the kind where the American flag flaps lazily over the post office and the air smells like fresh-cut grass mixed with barbecue smoke from the weekend grills, but underneath it all, there's this quiet hum of who's from here and who's not, especially if your background doesn't fit the mold. That's where I, Nia Washington, found myself stepping off the Greyhound bus with just a worn duffel bag and a fake resume tucked in my pocket, pretending to be this wide-eyed admin assistant fresh from Atlanta, looking for a fresh start in rural America after tough times back home. But the truth? I was no newbie scrambling for scraps. I'd built my life from the ground up since immigrating from Ghana at 16, dodging the stares and whispers in high school where kids teased about my origins like it was a joke, then clawing my way through night classes to become the CEO of Urban Roots, a nonprofit that's revamped crumbling neighborhoods across the South with smart planning and community grants worth millions. Yeah, I was there undercover, scoping out the Willow Creek Community Center for a potential partnership, seeing if they deserved the fat funding my board was dangling, but nobody knew that yet. And from the jump, it felt like I was walking into a room where the conversation stopped the second I appeared. The center itself was this old converted barn on the edge of town, with creaky wooden floors that echoed every step, posters of local heroes, mostly longtime residents, plastered on the walls, and a big bulletin board crammed with flyers for potlucks and Bible studies. But what hit me first was the way the air thickened when I pushed open the door, like everyone was sizing me up without saying a word. Karen Ellis, the lead coordinator with her tight blonde bun and that perpetual half smile that didn't reach her eyes, glanced up from her desk like I'd interrupted something sacred, her voice all syrupy sweet as she said, "Well, hello there. You must be the new girl. Nia, right? From, where was it again? Ghana. That's different, isn't it? We don't get many from places like that around here." Different. Like I was some curiosity, not a woman who'd negotiated deals with city councils and turned derelict lots into thriving parks. But I just nodded, keeping my cool because I'd learned long ago that blowing up only made folks dig in deeper. So I smiled back, thinking about how my mom back in Accra used to say, "Swallow the bitter pill and spit out honey," her way of reminding me that resilience wasn't about fighting every battle head on. Then there was Tom Harlan, the burly volunteer handyman with calloused hands and a trucker hat that screamed "local," who chuckled from the corner where he was fixing a leaky faucet, muttering something about, "Hope you can handle the filing cabinets. They're a mess, just like the folks who come through here sometimes." His eyes flicking over me like he was already doubting if I'd last a week, his motive clear as day. Keep things the way they've always been. No outsiders shaking up the pecking order, especially not someone like me. But what they didn't see was the fire in my gut, the kind built from years of proving myself, from arriving in the U.S. with nothing but a suitcase and dreams, working double shifts at a diner while studying urban planning, drawing inspiration from stories I'd heard from a Mexican friend back in Atlanta, Maria, who'd crossed the border as a kid and talked about salir adelante, that unyielding perseverance her abuela drilled into her during tough times in rural Texas, facing the same sidelong glances and whispered doubts, and how she'd turned it into fuel for opening her own bakery. Maria had given me this little woven bracelet before I left, a talisman from her hometown in Oaxaca, with threads in vibrant reds and blues symbolizing strength through unity. And as I fiddled with it under the table during that awkward intro chat, it reminded me why I was here. Not just for the grant, but to uncover if this place was poisoning its own well with prejudice. All while I kept my cards close, my voice steady, even as that subtle unease crept in, wondering how long I'd have to play small before the real me burst through. And get this, right as Karen was showing me to my tiny desk piled with dusty folders, this older janitor named Mr. Ruiz, turns out he was from El Salvador, been in Willow Creek for decades, caught my eye from the hallway, giving me a quick nod and a knowing wink like he could spot a kindred spirit from a mile away, his quiet presence hinting at an unexpected ally in this sea of skepticism, someone who'd probably swallowed his share of bitterness and might just help me navigate the undercurrents without me even asking. What I never expected was how that first day would set off a chain reaction, making me question if I could stay undercover without cracking. But hey, that's life as an immigrant of color in these parts. You show up, you endure, and you wait for the moment to shine. So, after that rocky first day where I felt like I'd been slapped with a welcome mat that said, "Stay in your lane," I dove headfirst into the grind at the Willow Creek Community Center, figuring if I kept my head down and let my work do the talking, maybe the whispers would die out. But boy, was that wishful thinking, because the microaggressions just ramped up like they were on a schedule, starting with Karen handing me a mop and bucket first thing in the morning with this casual wave saying, "Nia, sweetie, before you get to those files, mind giving the lobby a quick once-over? We like to keep things spotless around here." While in the same breath she turned to praise this white volunteer named Sarah, who'd basically done nothing but staple some flyers, for her amazing initiative on the same task I'd suggested yesterday, and all I could do was bite my tongue, thinking about how this wasn't new, how back in Atlanta I dealt with bosses who overlooked my ideas until a colleague rephrased them. But here it stung deeper because this place was supposed to be about community, not some invisible hierarchy where my accent and skin put me on cleanup duty. I swallowed my pride hard that morning, the frustration bubbling up like hot oil in my chest, making my hands shake a bit as I pushed that mop across the floor. But I reminded myself of what got me through those early immigrant years, hustling from Ghanaian villages where my grandma taught me to weave baskets from palm leaves, turning nothing into something beautiful, to those cold U.S. winters where I'd study urban planning by flashlight in a cramped apartment, drawing maps of dream neighborhoods that blended African communal spaces with American efficiency. And yeah, that quiet determination kicked in, whispering, "Not yet, Nia. Prove it on your terms." By lunchtime, I'd snuck off to the back storage room during my break, pulling out my notebook, that beat-up leather one Maria had gifted me, embroidered with Aztec patterns from her Mexican roots, symbolizing endurance like the ancient pyramids that withstood centuries of storms. And I started sketching out ideas for revamping the center's outdated event calendar, things like inclusive workshops on immigrant entrepreneurship that could draw in folks from the growing Latino community in town, inspired by stories Maria shared about her family's Day of the Dead celebrations back home, where altars honored the past while building hope for the future. And as my pencil flew across the page, I felt a spark of that old fire, the kind that turned my high school teasing into fuel for scholarships and my diner shifts into stepping stones for urban roots, where I'd already transformed 3 blighted blocks in Atlanta into green hubs with community gardens and job training spots. But get this, later that afternoon when we were setting up for a small town hall meeting on local farming grants, I spotted a logistical mess. The chairs were all jumbled, the projector wasn't hooked up right, and folks were starting to trickle in looking confused. So I quietly rearranged everything, angling the seats in a semicircle for better discussion flow like I'd learned in my planning courses, even tweaking the agenda printouts to include a quick icebreaker that highlighted diverse voices. And sure enough, the event ran smoother than silk, with people chatting animatedly instead of staring at their phones. But when Karen wrapped it up with a big grin, thanking the team for a job well done, her eyes skipped right over me to high-five Tom and Sarah, leaving me standing there with that overlooked setup like it had fixed itself by magic, and man, the frustration hit a new level, making me clench my fist behind my back as I thought, they have no idea what I'm capable of, but they'll see. Tom didn't help matters, cracking these so-called jokes during cleanup like, "Nia, you handle that mop like a pro. Must be all that village life back home, huh? Bet you could teach us a thing or two about sweeping dirt roads." His chuckle laced with that condescending edge, like he was testing how far he could push without crossing some invisible line, his inner motive screaming insecurity about anyone different, challenging the status quo he'd coasted on for years as the go-to guy around here. And it took everything in me not to snap back, instead flashing a tight smile and saying, "Yeah, well, hard work's universal." While inside, I was seething, reflecting on how this echoed the doubts from my early boardroom days where white execs questioned if a girl like me could handle big grants, but I'd turned that into quiet wins by outsmarting them with data and results. What kept me going through the doubt was spotting Mr. Ruiz mopping nearby, catching my eye again with a subtle thumbs up like he knew the game all too well from his own Salvadoran roots, where he'd fled civil unrest only to face go-back-home taunts in the States. And in that quick exchange, I felt a flicker of alliance, wondering if he'd be the one to tip the scales when things heated up. But then everything shifted a bit when I overheard Karen on a call, dismissing a complaint from a Latino family about unequal access to programs, muttering, "They're just being dramatic," and that's when my determination hardened. I jotted it down in my notebook, not just plans but evidence, thinking this undercover gig might uncover more rot than I bargained for, and what I never expected was how those whispers of doubt would start fueling my plan to flip the script entirely. The next staff meeting was where it all came to a head. Nia sat at the folding table, her notebook open to a page filled with careful sketches, a redesigned lobby with multilingual welcome signs, a calendar of cultural celebrations, even a proposal for a microloan program to help immigrant entrepreneurs. She'd stayed up half the night perfecting them, her fingers smudged with ink, her coffee long gone cold. Karen tapped her pen against the agenda. "All right, next item, fall programming. Any new ideas?" Nia took a breath. "Actually, I have a few." The room went quiet in that way Southern rooms do. Not quite hostile, but not welcoming either, like the air itself was holding its breath. She laid out her plans, her voice steady. The ESL program, a global eats potluck to showcase immigrant-owned food businesses. Even a simple idea, translating flyers into Spanish and Vietnamese. Tom snorted into his coffee. Karen's smile was so tight it looked painful. "Oh, Nia, bless your heart. Those are creative, but Willow Creek isn't—" "Well, it's not Atlanta." A few chuckles around the table. Nia kept her face smooth, but her pulse roared in her ears. Then came the kicker. "Besides," Karen sighed, flipping through Nia's sketches like they were grocery lists, "we don't have the funding for all this. Maybe stick to what you know, like filing." Nia's pen hovered over her notebook. She could have argued, could have told them she'd secured millions in grants for projects 10 times this size. Could have said, "I know exactly how to fund this because I've done it before." But she didn't. Instead, she nodded. "Of course. Just thought I'd try." Later, in the bathroom stall, she gripped the edges of the sink and exhaled hard. The mirror showed her everything she needed to see, The slight flare of her nostrils, the way her braids framed a face that refused to show defeat. "This is why you're here," she reminded herself. "To see what they really are." Her phone buzzed. "Jamal. Got the data you wanted. Also, Karen's last grant report smells fishy, like missing funds fishy." Nia's lips curled. Now that was a language Willow Creek understood. She texted back, "Dig deeper." Then she walked out, shoulders straight, ready to play their game a little longer. After all, the best revenge wasn't anger, it was success. And hers was coming. The Willow Creek Fall Festival was supposed to be simple: hay bales, apple cider, and a pumpkin carving contest that had been the same for 30 years. But by 10 a.m., it was a disaster. Karen's clipboard trembled in her hands as she hissed into her headset. "What do you mean the porta potties aren't here? The band's equipment is where?" The crowd was growing restless, kids whining as parents shot irritated glances at the empty stage. Nia watched from the registration table, her fingers tapping a silent rhythm against her thigh. She'd warned them about the vendor contracts, had triple-checked the logistics plan they'd ignored. Now, chaos. "Need help?" she asked when Karen stormed past, her cheeks blotchy with panic. Karen's laugh was shrill. "Unless you can magically produce toilets, no." Nia waited exactly 3 seconds, long enough for Karen to realize there were no other options, before pulling out her phone. "I know a guy." 20 minutes later, trucks rolled in. The band's missing speakers appeared. Even the cider, which had somehow been forgotten, arrived in industrial-sized jugs. The crowd cheered as music finally blared through the square. Karen mopped her brow, then turned to Nia with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, aren't you handy?" The words slithered down Nia's spine like ice. But the real knife came next, when Mayor Johnson clapped Karen on the back, booming, "You saved the day, Karen," as she basked in the praise, not even glancing at Nia. Then, the final insult. "Nia, sweetie, could you run these trash bags to the dumpster? They're overflowing." Karen thrust a reeking bundle at her, right in front of the mayor. For a heartbeat, Nia considered letting it drop, letting the garbage spill at Karen's designer boots. But instead, she took it. "Of course," she said, sweet as poisoned honey. As she walked away, she pulled out her phone and typed a message to Jamal. "Initiate phase 2. Burn it down." The audit wouldn't just expose missing funds, it would expose them. Every slight, every sneer, every time they'd mistaken her kindness for weakness. The trash bag stank, but Nia breathed deep anyway. Soon the whole town would smell the rot. The next week, Nia moved through the center like a ghost, present but unseen, quietly gathering what she needed while Karen and Tom remained blissfully oblivious. She made copies of financial records when Karen stepped out for lunch, just organizing the files. She recorded staff meetings where complaints from minority volunteers were brushed off. "Oh, Maria, you're being too sensitive." She even befriended the center's ancient printer, coaxing it to spit out logs of deleted emails, including one where Karen joked about creative accounting with the town treasurer. Meanwhile, Jamal worked his magic in Atlanta. His voice crackled through Nia's earbuds during her lunch breaks. "Karen's been skimming funds for years. That new playground equipment? Never ordered. And get this, Tom's nephew got paid $5,000 to renovate the storage room, which, surprise, still looks like a tornado hit it." Nia chewed her sandwich slowly, watching through the window as Karen held court in the parking lot, laughing with her inner circle. "How much did we find?" "Enough to bury them." The real gold mine came from Mr. Hayes, the janitor. One evening, as Nia pretended to straighten chairs, the older man leaned on his mop and said, "You ain't fooling me, Miss CEO." Nia froze. He chuckled, tapping his temple. "Seen your face in the Atlanta Business Journal." Knew from day one you was here for more than filing. For the first time in weeks, Nia's mask slipped. You're not going to tell anyone? Child, please. Mr. Hayes pulled a thumb drive from his overalls. Been keeping my own record since 2007. Got every racist comment, every lost complaint right here. Been waiting for somebody like you to come along. Nia clutched the drive like a lifeline. The weight of it, of being seen, nearly buckled her knees. The next morning, Karen cornered her at the coffee maker. You've been awfully quiet lately. Her perfume, something cloying and expensive, clung to the air between them. Nia sipped her coffee, letting the bitterness linger on her tongue. Just doing my job. Karen's eyes narrowed. Good, because some people around here are starting to ask why a girl like you really came to Willow Creek. A girl like me? Nia echoed, innocent as a lamb. Karen opened her mouth, but then the phone rang, shattering the moment. As she stomped away, Nia allowed herself one small, fierce smile. Let them wonder. The reckoning was coming. The audit report landed in Nia's inbox at 3:17 a.m. She sat up in bed, the blue glow of her laptop cutting through the dark as she scrolled through pages of damning evidence, misallocated funds, ignored discrimination complaints, even Karen's personal Amazon purchases billed to the center's account, a $400 designer purse. Really? By sunrise, she'd compiled a dossier tighter than a drum, but she wasn't reckless. First, she needed to test the waters. At the staff meeting, Nia waited until Karen finished her usual spiel about maintaining traditions before clearing her throat. Actually, I had a question about our funding guidelines. She slid a printed spreadsheet across the table. Page 12 of the bylaws says any expenditure over $500 needs board approval, but these playground repairs from last year. She tapped a highlighted line. $4,800, no approval paperwork. Was that an oversight? The room went dead silent. Karen's neck flushed an ugly red. That was an emergency. The slide was hazardous. Funny. Nia flipped a page, because the work order says it was for repainting the monkey bars. Tom slammed his coffee cup down. Who the hell do you think you are, auditing us? Nia kept her voice honey smooth. Just trying to understand. For transparency. The way Karen's eye twitched told Nia everything. She knew this wasn't curiosity. It was a warning shot. After the meeting, Mr. Hayes intercepted her in the hallway. Saw your little performance. He handed her a dusty key. Storage room B. Got something you'll want to see. The room was a graveyard of broken promises. Boxes labeled ESL materials, never used, and a framed photo of the all-white 1985 Diversity Committee. But in the corner, under a tarp, Nia found the real prize, brand new laptops still in boxes, tagged for the senior tech program that never happened. Her phone buzzed. Jamal. Grant boards inbound. ETA 48 hours. Nia took a photo of the laptops, then texted back. Tell them to bring popcorn. Karen had no idea. The mouse she'd shoved into a filing cabinet was really a lion, and it was about to roar. The town hall meeting was packed. Farmers in seed caps, young moms bouncing fussy babies, even old man Jenkins, who usually only left his house for bingo. They'd come for the free cookies, not the fireworks. Karen stood at the podium, beaming like she'd already won. As y'all know, our center's applying for a major grant to preserve Willow Creek's heritage. The doors banged open. Nia strode down the aisle in a tailored blazer, Jamal in 2 suits flanking her. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she stepped onto the stage. Karen's smile froze. And Nia? What are you? Nia didn't touch the mic. She didn't need to. Her voice carried like a gunshot. My name is Nia Washington, CEO of Urban Rise Foundation, and we are the grant board. The room erupted. Karen's clipboard clattered to the floor as Nia nodded to Jamal. He slapped a folder onto the podium. Audit findings, Nia said coolly. $28,000 in misused funds. Discrimination complaints buried since 2014. And Karen? She tapped a photo of the laptops. Care to explain these? Karen's mouth worked like a fish. Tom shot up, face purple. This is a setup. Some immigrant bitch rolls into town and suddenly we're the crooks? A horrified gasp from the crowd. Nia didn't flinch, just clicked her remote. The projector lit up with Tom's own words from a recorded staff meeting. If we let Mexicans use the food pantry, next thing you know they'll want to vote here. The mayor stood so fast his chair toppled. Jesus, Tom. Nia finally took the mic. Urban Rise will not be funding bigotry, but, she locked eyes with Mr. Hayes in the back, we will fund a new center, one that serves all of Willow Creek. Karen made a strangled noise. You can't. This is my... Your what, Karen? Nia's smile was lethal. Your personal piggy bank? As the crowd exploded into shouts, Nia stepped off the stage, right into a hug from Mateo's mom, tears streaking her face. Gracias, she whispered. Nia squeezed her hand. The real work was just beginning. The week after the town hall meeting, Willow Creek buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. Karen was suspended pending investigation, her carefully curated reputation in tatters. Tom resigned to spend more time with family, though everyone knew the real reason. The mayor's office issued a statement about new transparency measures, but the damage was done. Nia watched it all unfold from her temporary office at the motel, where she'd set up shop to oversee the transition. Jamal lounged in a chair, grinning as he scrolled through local Facebook groups. Oh man, Karen's getting dragged. Look, Betty Ann Wilkins just called her a thieving snake in the Willow Creek swap and sell group. Nia didn't smile. It's not about revenge. Could have fooled me, Jamal muttered. She ignored him, focusing on the plans in front of her, blueprints for the new community center, drafted with input from the very people the old one had ignored. A Honduran bakery owner, a black farmer whose family had worked the land for generations, even Old Man Jenkins, who'd surprised everyone by suggesting a wheelchair-accessible garden. Then came the knock at her door. Karen stood on the motel walkway, her designer sunglasses doing little to hide the puffiness around her eyes. She clutched a manila envelope like a life preserver. Nia crossed her arms. Here to threaten me? Karen's laugh was brittle. I don't have the leverage for that anymore. She thrust the envelope forward. I want to help. Inside were handwritten notes, names of donors, vendors, every backdoor connection she'd used to keep the center running. It's not an apology, Karen said quickly, but it's something. Nia studied her. The perfectly highlighted hair was frizzing at the roots. The manicure was chipped. For the first time, Karen Ellis looked human. Why? Nia asked. Karen's voice cracked. Because I built that place, and I don't want to see it burn. Nia tucked the envelope under her arm. Then prove it. Show up to the first diversity training. Listen. Actually, listen. Karen's nod was barely perceptible before she hurried away, heels clicking on the pavement. Jamal whistled. You really think she'll change? Nia watched Karen's car peel out of the parking lot. Maybe not, but she'll try. And for now, that was enough. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Willow Creek Community Center was nothing like the old fall festivals. Maria's tamal stand wafted cumin and citrus into the air. Kids from the ESL program waved hand-painted flags of Mexico, Ghana, and Vietnam. Even the mayor, once Karen's golf buddy, grudgingly posed for photos in front of the new All Are Welcome mural. Nia stood back, watching as Mr. Hayes demonstrated the senior center's new 3D printer to a group of wide-eyed grandmothers. Y'all can make replacement parts for anything, he crowed, holding up a printed denture case. Even Chester's fake hip. The crowd roared, a tug at her sleeve. Mateo beamed up at her, clutching a construction paper card. Para usted, he said proudly. Inside, crayon hearts framed crooked letters. Thank you, Miss Nia. She crouched to his level. Who helped you write this? Mama, but I picked the sparkles. He leaned in. You're prettier than Miss Karen. Nia burst out laughing, just as a familiar voice cut through the noise. I brought muffins. Karen hovered at the edge of the crowd, holding a bakery box. Her blazer was less tailored, her makeup subtler. The absence of her usual pearl necklace spoke volumes. Nia arched a brow. Poisoned? God, no. Karen thrust the box at her. Lemon blueberry, from the new Somali bakery. I thought they should be represented. For the first time, Nia saw it, the tremble in Karen's hands, the way her gaze darted to the mural's Arabic script like she was trying to decipher it. They're good people, Karen blurted. The family that runs it. I just never asked before. Nia took a muffin, bit into it. Tart lemon burst on her tongue, disarming in its brightness. Tastes like change, she said. Karen's laugh was startled, almost hopeful. Around them, the crowd surged toward the new recording studio where Mateo's cousin was laying down a rap verse in Spanglish. Willow Creek would never be the same, and neither would they. 6 months later, Nia stood on the steps of the Willow Creek Community Center one final time, her suitcase already loaded into the rental car. The building hummed with life behind her, kids chattering in multiple languages during after-school tutoring, the rhythmic beat of a West African drum circle spilling through open windows. Mr. Hayes hobbled over, leaning on his cane, now decorated with Adinkra symbols she'd painted for him. You sure about this? We could use you around here, Miss CEO. Nia grinned, adjusting the strap of her bag. Oh, you'll manage. That new director from Atlanta starts Monday, and she's way scarier than me. He chuckled, then grew serious. You did good here, girl. Real good. A honk interrupted them. Jamal leaned out of the driver's side window. Yo, we got a flight to catch. Ghana's not gonna visit itself. Nia turned for one last look at the center's new motto, carved into a wooden plaque by local artisans. Strong roots, many branches. Mateo came sprinting across the lawn, waving a sheet of paper. Wait, I forgot to show you. He thrust his latest school essay at her, My Hero, Miss Nia, complete with a crayon drawing of her standing atop a mountain of broken clipboards while Karen and Tom floated in a trash can below. Nia burst out laughing, tucking it carefully into her portfolio. This is going in my office forever. As the car pulled away, she watched the town shrink in the rearview mirror, the center's mural still visible like a beacon, the oak trees swaying in the wind. Somewhere beneath those roots were the pieces of the old Willow Creek, buried but not forgotten. Jamal cranked up the radio. So, where to next? Nia leaned back, smiling. Wherever they need lions. The road ahead stretched long and bright. At its heart, this story reminds us that true strength often wears the disguise of patience, that justice doesn't always demand a shout, but sometimes a steadfast, strategic silence. Nia's journey teaches us that self-worth isn't determined by the biases of others, and that dignity lies not in reacting to every slight, but in choosing how and when to reclaim your power. Prejudice thrives in unchallenged systems, yet change becomes possible when we confront those systems not just with anger, but with unshakable competence and proof. The most profound transformations, both in communities and in ourselves, begin when we refuse to accept the roles others assign us, and instead rewrite the narrative with quiet courage. If this story resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to prove your worth against unfair odds? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your experiences. If you found this lesson meaningful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that challenge, uplift, and inspire. Remember, every storm eventually clears, and what grows after, in hearts and communities alike, is often stronger than what came before. Here's to building bridges, one act of resilience at a time.